Hello, Berlin. Welcome to Radio Speitkauf. This is the Berlin podcast. We bring you all the stories from Berlin, and tonight we're bringing you the stories live from the bar at Donau115 with a friendly studio audience. Hello, audience. My name is Joel.
I'm Yuri here.
I'm Maisie.
And I'm Daniel Stern.
And coming up on tonight's show, we're going to bring you news about environmental scandal that is unfolding on Berlin's doorstep that might affect your drinking water. Daniel's going to tell us about his visit to an AFD demo, and we'll also tell you why you should take care up at Tempelhof from kites, errant kites that may strike you in the head. But first, for short news, Daniel.
All right. Who's in the market for a fur hat?
Me.
Well, it is quite timely. It's winter, and all those market stands are appearing at Alexanderplatz now for the Weihnachtsmarkt, and they sell all sorts of interesting things. One thing you maybe should be careful of is picking up a fur hat from anywhere near Alexanderplatz, because the police have recently raided a market stall where they found that a man was illegally selling fur hats made from dog fur. So the dog fur hats that were seized and checked by an expert who confirmed that they were actually canine. Now, it has been illegal to sell fur from house animals since 2008 in Europe. In case the legality was of any concern to you.
Well, I mean, I'm not like an animal. How do we pick which animals you're allowed to wear?
That's a philosophical question that we don't have time to get into tonight. But
is there like a marmot lobby?
have you ever wanted to make wine?
We're just moving right along.
Yeah, wow, that was some.
So hats are gross, but in other news,
if you've ever wanted to make wine in Berlin and have felt constrained by the traditions that say you're not allowed to, you're in luck because
there's a new regulation that has been adopted by the Senate, which allows anyone in Berlin to make their own wine and actually sell it, which has previously been not legal.
is it like now we can like home make wine, or is the idea that Berlin is now like a protected, like a Bordeaux type regional distinction?
Well, it had to be that like wine could only be made in these wine region, like Bordeaux.
Okay.
And now the new law allows people to make it here.
So now we can
Berlin,
like
which is not a
label
wine
it as like from Neukölln.
No, it's not. No. Well, you can, yeah, but it's not going to be.
is it going to be any good? Is the question.
Well, they already make it in Potsdam. If you go to Sanssouci, Friedrich the Great's winter, summer, I don't know, his palace. If you look at the hill on the way up,
it's a palace all year round.
It's a palace all year. It doesn't change. But the wine, unfortunately, doesn't grow, or the grapes don't grow very well there. But you can buy Sanssouci wine.
Wine is already being made in Berlin as well, on the Kreuzberg, on the Prenzlauer Berg, and at Humboldthain as well. I think these are examples. There
How
might
do you
be a
know
few
all
more.
this, Jöran?
I read the news and present them to you.
As we do here. Maisie, this was around your Keats. A bomb was recently discovered near the Jewish Museum. But this isn't some kind of new terrorism. This is very ancient bomb from World War II. Yuri, you want to tell us about it?
Yeah, there's been another bomb finding. This is actually the second one in short succession. A 250-kilo bomb from World War II was found on a construction site right opposite the Jewish Museum, and was then, like, the whole area was evacuated. I think 1,100 people were asked to leave their apartments and not to return until the bombs defused.
Yeah, I had to walk like 4 blocks out of my way. So World War II is bad.
It's unlikely to stop because apparently there are actually about another 3,000 undetonated bombs lying around the city.
Yeah, and also, like, when you're a builder, you dig around in the ground and you just hear this metal clonking. I would shit myself.
I like the way that the story was covered in various media. Like, there was media outlets that were like, undetonated bomb, like, it's been helped and don't worry about it. And there were places that were like, bomb at Jewish Museum. Like, what? So there was a lot you could do with that.
Where do you dispose your bombs?
You bring in a little police vehicle, don't you?
Or do you put them in the little BSR bins on the roads?
Well, there's 3,000. There is enough to actually, qualify for its own bomb disposal bin in your backyard. There are so many of these things.
Brown, yellow, green, and I don't know what color do we make it? Like electric pink. I think they bring it outside of town, they have a special place to blow them up, is how it works. That's an unimportant detail. And they have to go, when they're bringing it out of town, they have to go at least 50 miles an hour or else the thing explodes.
Nice fact.
Not a fact.
Bins. Bins again, Berlin.
Bins
Political
again.
bins. Do bins get political now, apparently, Joel, according to you?
On our last episode, we told you that we have some new round bins in the middle of Berlin's city centre. You might have seen them, these big spacey-looking things that can take extra garbage. Well, I just noticed when I was cycling along the other day that the BSR, the company that removes all the rubbish, has gotten a little bit cheeky and political. They often have slogans printed on their orange bins, you might have noticed. And this one, it now says, give me a TTIP, give me TTIP, like feed me the transatlantic trade agreement that is currently being negotiated with the EU, because that's a very contentious issue at the moment, and there's been lots of demonstrations. In fact, there was a huge demonstration like about 3-4 weeks ago in the center of town, people saying we don't like this agreement because it's going to allow a lot of unsafe products to come in from the US and other places. And now the bin company is deciding to throw its hat in the political ring by putting a message on its own bins. I thought that's kind of cool, you know, public agency getting active.
How do we imagine this affects the trash business? Like, is American trash going to compete with European trash? Is that one of our concerns with TTIP?
Maybe that's the reason they can speak out, is perhaps they don't have anything to gain or lose. Oh, you never know. There's a lot of agreements in there about the way local authorities can write their contracts and who they can contract from, and maybe they can get undercut by other competitors or something. I'm not sure.
So if you're pro TTIP, litter.
Yeah, don't put any rubbish in the
bins. Or
bins.
if you see someone littering, you know that where they stand on trade, international trade.
Wow, that's quite a statement. Well, I put my cigarette ends in the bin. If I smoked, I would, but I don't. I hear...
Great chance.
There's a lot of smoking in Berlin. Who smokes here? Yes,
Ooh,
just
one.
2 people. Or 3. There's a shy hand going up. There's a shy hand. Shame on you, is all I can say. Basically, I hate smoking except when I'm drunk. I think it's revolting.
She might have been drunk.
Well, that's why she's half putting her hand up.
Okay.
So maybe I should half admit. But there's a lot of smoking in Berlin, as you may have noticed. I've noticed something we all like to get our knickers in a twist about. Every second person seems to smoke. I've noticed when I go swimming here a lot, you come out the swimming pool and there's a whole line of smokers who've just done all their lengths. It's quite normal, isn't it, Joel?
Well, you say every second person, but the statistics show us that it's actually 1 in every 3 people who smoke. 1 in 3 Berlin men and 1 in 4 Berlin women smoke. And that makes Berlin actually the state with the highest concentration of smokers in all of Germany. So congratulations, Berlin. And I noticed our rant a few weeks ago, Maisie, about those advertisements for the ridiculous advertisements against illegal cigarettes. Apparently it didn't stop them spending, the campaign went ahead despite our criticism. Yeah. I would have thought at least they would have, had to be forced to adjust their facts, or,
Yeah.
No.
Maybe they're continuing in spite of us. Like we'll show Radio Spatekoff, who's.
Who are those radio people?
And the last piece of short news, this one actually has hit the international press already, so we're a little bit behind the ball on this one. But the Berlin Wall at the East Side Gallery is being restored, and they're currently repainting all the murals across the famous part of the wall that lots of people go and see. Maisie, do you remember we reported on this a few years ago?
Didn't it happen 5 years ago?
It did happen 5 years ago.
I'm pretty certain it did.
Yeah.
So why are we reporting it now?
Because they're doing it again. That's how old we are.
Right. Oh dear.
They're repainting it because people keep graffitiing the wall, which is ironic. But they're worried because what used to be, a piece of spontaneous art is now, it's become a sort of a fixture in the city and in the tourist attraction, and they want to keep it there, but people keep tagging it and chipping bits off it. So they've had to put a security fence in front of the wall. And they are planning to actually put a permanent fence in eventually. So there will be a fence in front of the wall.
Wow.
I hope it at least stops the city government from removing more bits of the wall like they did to make way for those apartments going on. Man, the building's going on quick down there. Have you noticed? In front of the arena down there and in front of the wall, those buildings are shooting up. And I saw an interactive map of the city the other day about what else is going to be developed. There's going to be a lot going on at Alexanderplatz. There's going to be at least 5 or 6 new towers. The whole city will look quite different within 5 or 10 years.
All right, so coming up, we've got a few items of public transport news. And Joel, you were traveling recently and made some interesting observations, did you?
I've been away a lot, actually. I've been in and out of the city for work and for different things, going to a lot of other places. It's always interesting to go to another city and see how their public transport and their bicycle systems work. I always try and, give it like a little grading as to how good or bad is it, or how does it compare to Berlin. So I was in San Francisco recently, and one little observation about San Francisco is there's a lot of cycling there, but they would do one thing differently there, which I think is kind of smart. When you're on a bike and you're coming up to a corner, and if there's a car in front of you, you have to pass on the left, so you've got to go around the car. Whereas here in Berlin, you're allowed to go on the right and pass in front of the turning car, which I think feels really dangerous. Every time I do it, I have to bang on the window of the car, or you make sure they see you. But in San Francisco, you're obliged to go on the outside, which I think is a little safer. What do you reckon?
How do you get to the outside?
You just have to pull in behind the car. You just have to pull.
You just it would turn your handlebars to the left.
Yeah.
You keep going forward, but not as quickly. It's. I can show you after the show if that's.
If you would, thanks.
Yeah.
So should we suggest that one for a traffic rule change? You're the traffic expert, Yuri. What do you think?
Well, I don't feel like it's actually safer. We should just tell drivers to look out for bikes when turning.
Do they have bike paths?
They have some bike paths. They do. They're quite good. Not everywhere, but in places there are bike paths. Yeah, San Francisco does a good job. In fact, all the cities that I visited have very good bike infrastructure. I'm really impressed to see how all the cities around the world are starting to actually take bikes seriously. I was in Dublin, in Milan, in Paris, and everywhere people, bikes are taking over the world. Yes. For militant cyclists. So the other public transport observation I had was from Milan, because I'm obsessed by U-Bahns and public transport, and especially underground trains. I have this little boy fascination with tunnels and trains. The coolest thing in Milan is that they have a brand new U-Bahn line from the last year or two, and it's a driverless U-Bahn line, and that means that there's no driver at the front, so they have just a glass window, and you can sit up the front and watch the tunnel go zooming ahead of you.
Joel, isn't that just
It's
a
amazing.
light railway that you have all over Europe for the last 30 years?
Maybe this is my first time on one.
Okay, that's Joel's news.
Yeah. If you want to go have fun on an U-Bahn, go to Milan and take the line number 5 and sit at the front and watch the tunnel race in front of you.
Autonomous driving is actually being discussed a lot in all kinds of transport, like even car transport. And it's the shit everyone talks about right now.
Driverless vehicles.
Yeah.
I haven't seen any in Berlin. Have you?
No.
Are they doing any tests
the
here?
future.
No.
Give it 100 years.
I also wondered why do they not need drivers on a train? Are drivers really that expensive that we have to get rid of them? I don't think they get paid that much, do they?
All right, so you're anti-train driver?
No, I'm pro-train driver.
Oh,
Keep
I
them
see.
employed. Yeah.
All right.
I don't see the imperative to get rid of them, but there you go.
They are the most expensive
You're
bit of running a
anti-robot.
transport system.
The drivers are the most expensive.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Okay, so the Landwehrkanal, the one going past or across Cottbusser, is going to be closed for 5 months until March next year.
And that's because they're doing a whole bunch of works on the, what do you call it, the banks of the river to shore it up, because it's been overused by tourist boats. Is that right, Yuri?
Maybe it has to do with the boats, but it's also just time. They're old. They need to reset the fundament. And the whole process, though, is interesting for another reason, which is that the way they're restoring it now is actually the result of a really big mediation process, the biggest one that Germany's ever seen. A bunch of people voiced their opinions, protested, and came up with this way of doing it.
Now, they were upset because their original plan was to chop down about 200 trees to repair the canal, but as a result of all this mediation, they have agreed not to chop down as many trees, I think. Is that right?
Or any, I believe.
But the bad news is that you can't row your boat down the canal now until March 31st. So put the boats away. It's
So no winter boating.
boating
for me.
season is over.
This is unacceptable. What kind of mediation allows to shut down a winter boating? Who's representing my interests?
I wonder if ice skating will still be allowed, because it has been freezing over the whole canal in recent
Was
winters.
it ever allowed?
What?
Is it not?
I've ridden a bike down the Landwehr Canal.
You
on
have
ice.
not?
I have. I rode
When?
a bike on.
Yeah.
This is like 5 winters ago when it was really cold. I actually rode a bike on the Landwehr Canal.
Wow.
Yeah. So that will still be allowed if it freezes this year. I don't think we're going to get any snow this winter, though. I don't know. I've got the feeling it's very warm already, and I can't see any
It's
snow
warm
coming.
today, and therefore we will not get snow all winter long. It's a weather segment we've added to the show.
It's not even forecast. It's just, speculation. Yuri, what's going on with the bike highway that they want to build along the S1 line?
Yeah, so last episode we talked about this new bike highway plan that's going to be right next to the S1 between Potsdamer Platz and Lichterfelde West. And now some people have actually voiced a concern about these whole plans, which I thought were really good plans, because they would put on hold plans to build a new railway, or actually an old railway that has been closed in the meantime, between Potsdam and Berlin. There are loose plans that this railway line that the bike track is supposed to be built on might reopen again in the future. So they're conflicting goals there.
What if we just brought the bikes onto the train? You would get there quicker, and then everyone get what they wanted, right?
Would you still have to get a ticket for the bike?
Okay.
Did you know that same stretch there, from Potsdamer Platz and down, they used to have a maglev train line for a couple of years. Isn't that cool? Right now they're building this thing in California. What do they call it? The Hyperloop, this floating super fast
The monorail.
Yeah, the monorail. It's basically an internal monorail. And they used to
Another
actually
light
have,
rail, Joel.
They had one in Berlin, like about 5 stations long, Potsdamer Platz to Gleisdreieck, for like the early 90s, and then they tore it up.
Potsdamer Platz, that's like 7 feet.
Yeah.
That was like an amusement park ride, not like public transportation.
Most monorails are, aren't they?
Yeah.
Okay.
And in other news, refugees have begun moving into Tempelhof.
So we've been talking a lot about the refugee issues and how they're affecting Berlin, and we know that there's a lot of refugees coming here, and they're having trouble actually finding places to put them all and to give them shelter. So they've actually started putting them inside the old Tempelhof airport, which I think is generally a very good thing. They're using a lot of other buildings as well. They're talking about using the old ICC building, the Congress Hall over in the west. But now that it's reached Tempelhof, it's taken a little bit of a twist, because some politicians from the SPD are trying to use the refugee crisis to overturn part of the Tempelhof referendum law. If you remember, we talked about this forever in the last couple of years, about how there was a referendum to make sure that there was no building on the park at Tempelhof. But now the SPD says it wants to amend the law that was brought in as a result of that referendum, which the people won, to allow building on the western edge of the park so that they can put up what they're calling temporary shelters. Now, this is being strongly criticized by the Die Linke and the organizers of the referendum, who say that the SPD, who are Berlin's ruling party, they're basically trying to open the door for full development on the park like they wanted to do originally. They wanted to originally build luxury flats all around the edge of the park. And so it's a bit of I don't know, I'm a bit torn on this. This is a kind of... it pulls my liberal tendencies in two different ways. So on one hand, finding a place for refugees to stay. On another hand, keeping the park open and free. But it does seem like the SPD has some, they're trying to be a little bit tricky about it and say, well, now that the refugees are here, let's rewrite that entire law that you people all voted against, or voted for, and I should say.
So cheeky.
To just go back to the ICC thing, isn't that listed or not?
It is.
This 1970s building out near the Zob, isn't it?
Out near the bus
Charlottenburg.
station.
Amazing, these are cliche Kubrick-style building. And I've never been inside, and I've always wanted to go inside. So now's my chance.
If you have a fraudulent
Exactly.
refugee
That's
status?
my plan.
All right.
Yeah,
This
I've
is
got to
the
get in there
problem.
before it gets pulled down.
Joel and I actually went and visited for one of those architectural tours we did back in the
Yes,
day.
I remember.
Find it
Way
on
to
the
rub it in.
archives.
Thanks.
Back on the topic of Tempelhof.
Oh, it's me. Sorry. Well, I hear that a man was hit by a kite on Tempelhof the other day, Joel.
Yeah, it's no laughing matter. A 65-year-old man was cycling along one of the paths when a 24-year-old kite surfer on a skateboard, or on a kiteboard, I guess you call it, overtook him, and I'm not sure how it happened, but the kite hit the cyclist in the head. The man was taken to hospital, and he died a few days later. So, yeah, take care up at Tempelhof. And despite the accident, there's no plans to change any of the rules about how using kites in the park. The managers of the park just said everybody should just take care. We've been dividing our news up into segments. That was our refugee and Tempelhof segment. Now we're up to our building news segment, where we tell you all of what's going with development around the city. And this one's about the REW Rohr Temple, right next to Warschaustrasse on Friedrichshain. There's been talk for a while about what's going to happen there. The clubs, are they going to stay? Are they going to go? What's the update, Yuri?
The east part of the whole grounds has been sold to a Munich company called International Campus AG. This is the terrain that was run by the Neue Heimat street food market, who have become insolvent recently.
When did that happen? I didn't even notice.
2 months ago?
Wow.
Hold on, what was the market? The one that was on Sunday?
The Neue Heimat, that huge club complex.
They had like a bunch of different events and
was
stuff
running
over
for about,
there.
8 months and then closed down? That's a pretty short lifespan for a club even.
I think it was really horribly mismanaged. So that's...
They had some fire safety and building permit issues, which were probably the reason.
And what's going to happen there now?
Well, there's some company from Munich. They're planning on building student accommodation, but Friedrichshain's development plan actually doesn't allow for any housing to be built on the terrain, and so I guess for anything to happen in that regard would require changing plans.
Or temporary accommodation.
Yeah.
That's how you do it. In other news about bars?
Yes, if anyone here or anyone general wants to open a bar or a club here, you shouldn't buy one off eBay.
An ad on eBay for a Spreeside beach bar recently got a lot of attention. The bar's called Rampe, and it's in a really great location, right on the Spree next to Michaelsbrücke, across from Kata Blau, next to the old Kata Holzig. And it can be yours for just 35,000 euros, plus 1,500 monthly rent. The only catch is actually that the owner of the land isn't aware of the offer and isn't happy about it.
I love the on eBay. There's like an old timey salesman trying to trick people into buying. Hey son, how'd you like to buy a club? You can do whatever you want there. Deep house, techno music, have some fun. We got GHB, MDMA, speed, whatever you want. Come on down. Oh, $35,000 right on the water. And he just takes your money and goes zoinks.
Save your money, people. You can spend it more wisely. Hey, something's going on down at the Spreewald Park, finally.
Yeah, one of the buildings down at Spreewald Park, an old food and bev establishment, is being restored. It's actually listed as a monument that is worth preserving, so that's what they're doing with this. And Treptow-Köpenick Bezirksamt, they're actually working on plans for the whole redevelopment of the theme park. And well, they're still in the process of that, so no one knows what's going to happen. What they're saying is that it's going to be rather minimalistic, more for like kids to come, rather than a whole full-on theme park.
I've said it before. I liked it better when it was an abandoned theme park instead of a theme park. I think they've really ruined their appeal there. And what's this about rubbish? Apparently it's going to take 6 months to get all the rubbish off the site.
Must be a lot of rubbish.
Is that from the fire that they had there? Or just...
Maybe like all the dinosaurs are rubbish.
No.
I think that it's also like ghost removal and creepy old men who have been plotting against talking dogs and stuff.
I don't even know what that means.
Culture.
And our favorite item of recent years, Joel, things keep getting worse at the airport.
Just when you think things could not possibly get worse at the BER, which is still not open and will not be open for a very long time, if at all. In fact, they've even been talking about whether there was one CDU politician who brought up the topic, maybe we should just scrap it and start again somewhere else. So
oh my God.
Yeah, it's getting that. So they recently released a bit of a catalogue of errors of all the things that have happened there, because we know things have been bad. We didn't know exactly what was going on, really. So here's some of the mistakes that have occurred. Apparently, they put in escalators that were too short, and they had to add stairs to the top of the escalator to reach the floor above.
No.
Yeah.
That is so avoidable.
So avoidable. They misnumbered the doors, so they put in hundreds of doors, and then they put in messed up all the numbering. So like they're not in order, or some doors didn't have any known numbers, and apparently all the doors need a number, and they're just all over the place. So,
Okay.
600 walls were required restructuring. They were meant to be firewalls, but they weren't fit for the job. 30 of them had to be completely demolished and rebuilt, and the other 570 had to be reinforced. So, yeah. Apparently, there were ventilators put in for the ventilation that were too heavy for the roof to hold them. They didn't notice this until they were on the roof, and when somebody pointed out that maybe the roof can't actually handle the weight of the things on top of them.
Isn't this a new ventilation system? I think a few years back there was like an issue with them, and they probably went and got a more heavy assortment.
That's exactly what they did, because the main problem for the starting point was the ventilation.
So this is a different failure in the ventilation system
Yes.
than when we reported on like 2 years ago.
This is the new failure
Okay.
with a new ventilation system that had to be replaced too. We've already told you many times that the lights can't be turned off. The electrical system was hardwired to keep them on permanently, and they can't undo that, apparently.
Well, this is a contract issue with Vattenfall.
I'm going back on that.
You don't think it's true?
Well, I read it in the paper. They can't be turned off as well. So it's both of them. They also had a lot of just human error as well as building error. So somebody dumped a bunch of confidential documents from the airport, including all the plans, into a supermarket recycling bin, which were later found by somebody, member of the public. The company.
Maybe that's where they found the plans in the first place.
The company that was contracted to do half of the building was called Imtech, and it went insolvent, which cost a lot of time and a lot of money. And the same company had a manager who actually stole 350,000 euros from the project and only got fined 200,000.
What?
Wow.
I guess they were like, we were gonna waste that other 150 anyway. So this is like I couldn't brainstorm. If you just like, Dan, like think of 200 think of as many things that could go wrong with building an airport as possible.
So the reason it all happened is because they originally planned a smaller airport, then halfway through someone said, no, let's make it bigger, or they realized that there was greater demand for the airport, and so they redrew the plans on the fly, which messed up all the calculations. It's not like baking a cake. You can't just like throw in another egg and another, cup of flour. And apparently that's not even good when you're baking either. So
Right.
Don't you think it's just
like baking. Oh, sorry.
it's like a ploy? Maybe it's a ploy. You know, they keep replacing the head of the Flughafen development, and I think it's, in Germany you get lots of money if you get voluntary redundancy. So maybe just that's the plan, and you just come in and do it, get a new guy in every time, gets laid off, really massive paycheck. The next one comes in and thinks, way, get rid of some more money, be out of a job in a year, and just keeps going on and on. It might be a kind of massive kind of cartel of people who want to get fired.
now,
All are willing to ruin their careers.
Exactly.
My theory is that it's performance art, and that like in a few years, like it'll be like someone will, we didn't actually need 30 years to build an airport, but like, ta-da, art.
It's a bit like the Banksy thing, isn't it?
Yeah. It was Banksy all
Yeah, it
along.
was, isn't it? It's all a big joke.
Well, okay, we're a balanced news show. We're a serious media outlet, and what I remember from when I learned how to be a journalist was that you got to present both sides of a story. And so here to defend German building practices and prove that Germans can actually build stuff on time is Jöran with a list of things that are actually going all right.
Well, just a few examples of things that
List kind of exaggerating.
I have two things.
2 is not a list.
That's amazing.
No, I have a few more. All right. So the A10 was redone a few years ago, which finished on time.
What's that?
Actually, 10 months before time they finished the whole thing.
Is that an Autobahn?
Yeah, the autobahn that goes in the northeast of the city.
Don't think I've ever been on it, so I don't care. Yep, next.
Yeah, wait, that's not Berlin news. That's
like-
just outside of Berlin news.
Well, it's a ring,
Nah, I don't know about that actually.
Okay, and then the new railway line that goes to the airport
That got built, yep.
got built in time.
And in fact, they're running trains on it even though no one's using it.
Yeah. And so far, the new City Cube, the new ICC, well, it's called City Cube, the new Messe building, is on track, as well as the Schloss. But we'll see.
Well, that's one building I'd like them not to finish ever, actually, is the Stadtschloss.
This again.
This again.
Yeah, something's got to go wrong with the Schloss. It's got
hate
to.
it.
It's
All
inevitable.
right. That was building news.
We don't edit this, do we? that on the podcast? usually?
Xylophone.
No, that's a backup one that only.
Okay.
It was well worth the wait.
Backup sting.
All right,
Daniel.
Oh yeah, I did some report. I sort of did some. I went to the AfD demonstration yesterday.
You did some on the ground reporting.
I did. Well, I was like looking forward to when I was gonna be like, I'm a journalist. You can't do this to me. But no one really did anything to me.
So what was the demo you went to?
So the Alternative for Deutschland had they all got together to be fascist or whatever they're into. I don't know what they were saying on their loudspeakers. They don't like Merkel. They don't like refugees or immigrants. And that seemed to be about all the points they were trying to make. I read that the reporting on it that there was like 5,000 people there, and it was a lot. It was depending what angle you were at. If you would like jam yourself into like a bunch of anarchists, you felt like, oh yeah, Berlin, we're awesome, like hooray for us. And then if you went around to another angle, you would just see like a swarm of old people full of hate. It was the layout of it did make it really hard, I think, for counter-protesters to sort of gather in any place, just because it kept butting up against buildings or construction sites. And so, and then, of course, it's easier to form a circle than a ring because of the geometry. And then as they went to their march, like as people were counter-protesting to the side of the march, the counter-protesters kept running into blockades and whatever. And I mean, in the end, the police were interfering with counter-protests, but that was because they were protecting people's free speech. So I guess maybe I don't like free speech. I mean, like the theme was like you as I stood there, you would watch sort of the counter demonstrators shouting like Nazis raus, and then the demonstrators would come up and face them and shout Nazis raus. And so it was just like two people on either side of a fence agreeing that the others were Nazis and should leave. And I don't know how that does anything. But I mean, one thing and I don't know if you saw pictures of it in the news. From whatever angle you took it, you could see like neo-Nazis waving flags, or you could just see like old people carrying flowers, just depending on like what picture you wanted from the march. And on the other side, you could sort of see like gutter punks like shouting scary stuff, or you could see like nice people like patiently waiting for the people who disagreed with to leave. I don't know.
The AfD is the right-wing party that's sprung up in the last couple of years, and they've recently gained a bit in the polls. They've gone up from 14% to 18% recently as a result of some of the reaction to the refugee influx, which is scaring all the old people, I guess.
They're a bit like the sort of middle-class NPD. But I was out there yesterday and I actually didn't know that was going on. I thought it was the environmental people. And I was trying to get a bike that I'd left somewhere in a Hinterhof in Friedrichstraße, and then all these people came towards me dressed in black. I just couldn't identify what they were marching for, which was I found it quite spooky because I couldn't tell from the demographic, from how they were dressed. They didn't have any placata with them. Were there lots of them? I don't know. Lots of.
Where were you?
I was around Friedrichstraße, which is where it was happening, I think. But yeah, that was weird.
I think the guys in black were...
they Gegendemonstranten.
Yeah, I think they were...
The Black Bloc.
I don't know, they looked pretty kempt, I thought, for anarchists.
Oh, okay.
Tidy haircuts, but they weren't quite NPD. Like, I can always spot an NPD. I've got my Nazi dar out, so...
I just quickly want to clarify those numbers. Up from 14 to 18%, it's just Eastern Germany, but they have gotten up to 9% in the recent poll for all of Germany.
So it's higher in the east, but it's still gaining in the national polls.
Still scarily high.
You were at a big demo in Vienna, weren't you?
No,
recently?
in Munich. I went out because I work in travel, and I was down there per chance, had an evening off, and there was a big demonstration of, it wasn't the NPD, it was just a kind of the general Pegida type gathering of anti-Muslimish people down in the centre of Munich, and it was a tiny demonstration. They're talking utter rot, just amazing speeches, like one guy getting up, a kind of middle-aged German guy saying, and the Syrians are here, and they're young men. They're young, I tell you. And the next thing you know, they'll be raping our daughters, and all this kind of. It was really like incredible rhetoric. And then you had on the other side, you had a anti or Gegen demonstration. We just shouted every time, but you had to be very careful about what you did because the police were filming it all. And if you did even like the stink finger at them, they'd bundle it off into a van. But they were a tiny group, if that's any comfort.
Because it's illegal to give someone the finger
I think
in Germany, isn't it?
I imagine in Bavaria it probably is in public.
Yeah.
Are you
They're quite
serious?
strict
You can
about
get
those
fined. You can get
things.
fined if you swear at someone on the street too. If you
Yeah.
tell someone like "f off" in the
Or in
street,
a car. Oh.
yeah, they can.
Yeah.
They can.
Well, I saw a lot of birds being flipped yesterday.
Different rules for Berlin.
Okay, in Berlin, it's like the smoking ban just doesn't
Yeah,
apply here, and
exactly.
then you're allowed to flip people
Yeah.
off. It was a bizarre thing that I didn't know how to interact with. As like I don't vote here. I don't know what I was shouting.
Interesting you bring that up about the voting, because next year is actually an election year in Berlin. The local city council elections will be held all across the city, and you can't vote probably, Daniel, because you're not an EU citizen, are you?
Not as far as I know, but
No. Well, if you do live in Berlin and you are a citizen of any EU country, you are actually eligible to vote in those elections. And we're going to be bringing you some stories in the next couple of episodes. In fact, we're going to present a politician who is aiming for the hipster vote and wants to get elected to the city council. And he's worked out that you only actually need something like 5,000 votes to do it, which seems quite doable, doesn't it?
which party is this?
This is your friend Jörg.
Okay, that's what I figured.
Is he outing himself as a hipster?
No, he's realised that this is a demographic that can be targeted. And in fact, I had a similar thought, because of course we had recently the issues with the Spätkaufs in Neukölln, in at least one certain section of Neukölln, being prosecuted for being open on Sundays. And then we had a petition against this, and a lot of people signed up. That sounds like an election topic to me right there. What about the Spätkauf party in favour of Spätkaufs?
You as the leader, Joel, now's your chance.
I was thinking Yuri, he's the clean-cut German.
Yeah, I can actually run.
Yeah, that's probably makes him a better politician.
Yeah, it might help.
Okay.
So we had a pretty good summer. We had a pretty good summer, right?
Yeah.
Remember? It was hot
Yeah.
at some point. It was so hot, in fact, that the Spreewaldgurken farmers have been complaining about extremely low harvests.
Maybe you should translate those words you just said.
Spreewaldgurken
Harvest is when you take the vegetables from the ground and you just you pull them off the plants. I mean, is that? It can be fruits too. Sorry.
depends on the harvest.
Spreewald, they take them from the water, don't they?
I'm not sure. The cucumbers.
Cucumbers, gherkins grown
Gherkins.
in Spreewald, just south of the city. They're actually quite famous around, well, Berlin at least.
Yeah,
for
they're a
being,
classic GDR brand.
being tasty. But this year there won't be so many of them, is that right?
It's right. They have been, the heat wave hasn't agreed with the cukes, and so does this mean maybe a price hike in Spreewaldgurken that we have to expect?
My budget is blown already. What am I going to do?
Well, maybe we can get some cheap foreign pickles in and.
Not with TTIP, it wouldn't be allowed. So another news about the spree. This one's got nothing to do with gherkins, but this is a major pollution scandal that's actually unfolding on Berlin's doorstep. It's been discovered that Berlin's drinking water is being slowly polluted with sulfur from a huge coal mine in Brandenburg. The coal mine is run by the Swedish energy company called Vattenfall, and it's been operating for about for several decades now in a town called Welzlo, which is 150 kilometers south of Berlin, not far from Lausitz, where the Spreewald gherkins are grown. So the coal that they're digging up is called lignite, which is brown coal. It's the most dirty kind of coal that you can get, far worse than black coal in terms of greenhouse gases. And lignite was the main product of East Germany too, wasn't it, Maisie?
Yes, it
So these mines have been around for a long time. But recently it's been discovered that one of these mines has been discharging its wastewater into the Spree, and it's claimed that the wastewater is treated and it's cleaned up before it's discharged. But recently some tests have shown that the amount of sulfur in the water has increased to about 300 milligrams, which is above the safe level of 250. And above 250, sulfur starts to erode the concrete of the city's water infrastructure, and it also starts affecting people's health. So these levels have already been detected, and it's causing people to question whether there should be a second coal mine open in Welzlo, which they're currently planning. Yeah.
So the actual amount of sulfur in drinking water is less than 300. 300 is just the amount that you get in the Spree. but that is being cleaned and then put into drinking water, so it's safe to drink the water still, everybody. Levels are at the moment between 140 and 160 milligrams per liter, which is fine. But levels have been rising, and they are discussing opening a whole new mine in the same area, Welzow Süd 2, that will be called. And well, I guess locals there aren't happy about it for the reason that their houses might be demolished for it, but other people really want it because the coal has a really long tradition in the Lausitz region. And I'm not sure what that means for Berlin's drinking water, but opening another mine seems...
It's a little archaic, isn't it? In this, I thought we were meant to be getting off fossil fuels, not opening new ones, new mines, and certainly not polluting a major city's water source. That seems unwise in the extreme.
Yeah. I think we've now established that however much anything in Germany says it's polluting, it's like actually 10 to 20% more.
Like VW?
Yes, that's a reference to the cars. Thank you.
Nice one.
Well, we've actually come to an end of our live recording of Radio Spätkauf. Yeah, it went so quick, Dan. You didn't get a single pun in.
That's a lot of pressure on me right now. This is undue punishment.
Have you got any gigs coming up that you want to promote, Daniel?
Let's see. What's December 6th at the Comedy Cafe Berlin. I'll be presenting Georg Kammer Has a Conversation with a Sandwich starring Daniel Stern. It's a sort of absurdish sketch comedy show. That'll be the thing that I'm going to promote right now.
Great. We'll head along, check it out. We'd like to thank you, audience, for coming along and watching us read the news. This very old-fashioned way of coming down to your local bar to find out what's going on. We hope you've been slightly informed, at least. We're going to try and do this more regularly if we can.
This is fun. Yeah, guys, thanks for coming out. Give yourselves a round of applause.
Thank you.
Let's also, did we thank Chad and Donau115 at the top of the show? Let's do it again. Thank you, Chad, for setting this up, and thank you, Donau115. Yeah.
So that's it for us. I've been Joel.
I was Yuri.
I'm still Maisie.
And I'm Dan. Bye.
And this is Radio
Thanks, guys.
Spätkauf.
Cheers.
Cheers.